Hemp experts, if there are such a thing, reveal surprising rescheduling impacts. So now they're talking about, the 800-pound gorilla in the room, right? Which is not cannabis, it's hemp, right? Which has proliferated since the Farm Bill, and mix a little bit of Farm Bill, a little bit of capitalism, and a little bit of humans' desire to get high, and you have what we have, right? Okay, so cannabis rescheduling took the U.S. news cycle by storm last week following the DEA recommendation. The process of taking the plant from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 will likely take 1 to 4 years. Really? 1 to 4 years? Is this the speed of our government? Holy shit. It's going to be like in the next administration by the time this thing rolls out. So 1 to 4 years to review government offices, public comment, and administrative hearing. Well, that's useful. So at least they're going to be taking public comment. So it doesn't sound like the move from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 is a done deal, right? Because if they're going to take public comment and they're going to kind of retool this thing, maybe Schedule 3 is just going to come unwound. So with the long road ahead starting to form, much of the weed world is speculating on how many various sectors like the hemp THC, Delta 9, and THCA, there it is, right? Hemp THCA, and the like. So this article asks that question, is looking at what's going to happen to that hemp market. So the truth is that rescheduling shouldn't have much of an impact on these developing hemp-derived markets for a few reasons. First, Schedule 3 won't be official for some time. Secondly, the nationally available THC products maintain compliance through the 2018 Farm Bill. Well, that's not the case with THCA, because it says in the Code of Federal Regulations that you have to report the total THC, which is the amount of THC that's measured, but also the amount of THC times 87% to convert that over into THC, right? So saying that it's all compliant, I think, is a lot of shit. So hemp THC in Schedule 3. Shadia Torabi, president of the Texas Hemp Coalition and co-founder of the hemp brand Restart, is more keen on hearing Farm Bill amendments and updates on state bills rather than the market regulating, or rather than the market rescheduling news. But one day they may inform each other. Well, again, we've talked about this on High at 9 News a few times. The regulatory jurisdiction for the U.S. Department of Agriculture ends at harvest. Right? So how is something in the Farm Bill going to change what's being chemically done to CBD that comes from hemp, right? Doesn't solve the problem. Bunch of hot air. So given the original framework and the recently released interim frameworks, it doesn't appear that the possibility of rescheduling is impacting hemp THC as for now, Torabi said in a statement shared with Green State. In fact, I think hemp THC could possibly be the pathway for operators in the adult use market who would be negatively impacted by the rescheduling of marijuana to Schedule 3. House Agriculture Committee Chairman Glenn T. Thompson, Republican from Pennsylvania, introduced an overview of the new bill to the group in early May. Markups of this edition are scheduled for May 23rd. Other members of the committee have been quick to point out poison pill policies that may be sinking the bill easily, like cuts to nutrition assistance budgets. Farm Bill answers aren't due to come for some time, but the final version is nearer than Schedule 3. So the final version of the Farm Bill is going to be published before Schedule 3 is going to go into effect. Final deadline for the new bill is September 2024, so that's just in a couple months. Until then, Torabi's theory is that the hemp THC market in industry marks an interesting view, two spaces that may eventually play with each other eventually. So making the jump from state-regulated weed to hemp, many popular state-regulated cannabis brands have jumped to hemp-derived pot products. So wonderful. In the last year, most are seeking opportunities after being stifled by overregulation, taxation, and more regulated markets. Latin cannabis and lifestyle brand Mesobis previously only sold its gomitas in California, recently took them nationwide with hemp-derived THC. With rescheduling possibility on the horizon, Green State asked the CEO and co-founder Nelson Curry how the brand feels about the upcoming process and the new line that it has dropped. Like Torabi, his attention isn't on rescheduling, it's on the Farm Bill. That bill will dictate the next 5 years of hemp THC at the federal level, and it may not rewrite the definition of hemp, Curry said. As for rescheduling goes, besides the removal of 280E tax, I don't think anyone knows what rescheduling of cannabis actually means. Therefore, it seems quite early to be making or taking any actions or implementing procedures, as the jury is still out on what rescheduling will actually do. The moral of the story, hemp THC won't be impacted by the rescheduling recommendation anytime soon. The news was big, but doesn't mean that directly touches every part of the hemp space. For now, all hemp eyes are on the Farm Bill markup. Eventually, the federal government will likely take interest in the space eventually. When it's all said and done with the government, money always talks. Cannabis lawyer Thomas Howard represents Illinois brand Collateral Base. He believes that the state and the Fed will seek to regulate hemp THC and to recoup the profit in the form of taxes. You can ignore all the cannabinoids you want, but the states that legalize it are not because of taxes. In the end, the Fed will figure out their cut, and the states and the regulations for access of psychoactive cannabinoids, whether they are naturally made or made in a lab from hemp or chemistry, Howard said. For now, the Farm Bill has the power over THC operators, but Howard has a point. Those following the space may sense the clock counting down on freedom and ease with their sector operates. There is much unknown about the manufacturing of Delta-9 hemp THC and other Farm Bill dependent products. However, one thing is for certain: very few brands seem concerned about rescheduling as it relates to their operations. To them, it's the Farm Bill or bust. So, yeah, I don't know. It's the same story. Everyone's talking about the Farm Bill. Farm Bill basically separated out low THC, which is also low THCA cannabis, from the Controlled Dangerous Substance Act. But what they don't realize is that there's all of this synthetic cannabinoid stuff, including conversion of CBD into THC, Delta-9, Delta-8, and then there's all the THCP, THCB, all these other odd cannabinoids, which they're flying under the flag of hemp, but they're not extracted from hemp at all. They're completely synthetic. So, I think there still needs to be some regulation here from the FDA in order to put their arms around that. That's what I've always been saying. I'm interested in what the other correspondents here at High and Nine have to think, and that's our story from Jure Science Hall here at St. Michael's College in Colchester, Vermont. What do you all have to say about this article?
I mean, it doesn't sound to me like they're changing the Farm Bill really at all, Dr. Mark. It sounds like everything is going to proceed as normal, and like that's how it sounds to me. Am I wrong?
Yeah, it doesn't. I think the one thing they can do, Jason, is they can be maybe a little bit more clear on what I was trying to emphasize with Rachel before, which is that high THCA hemp isn't hemp at all. It's cannabis. And I think they needed to put that language into the front end of the Farm Bill. If you read through the Code of Federal Regulations, you do, according to the USDA, have to report the total THC number. And the total THC number is what you measure in decarboxylated THC plus THCA 87% of that THCA content, because when you smoke that, all of that THCA gets converted into high THC. So, again, we've talked about this several times. There is no loophole. There's just a bunch of people who are incurring a whole lot of risk, but making a whole lot of money. So kind of like the old saying, with risk comes reward.
Yep.
And that's, a hefty billion-dollar opportunity that people are taking advantage of.
Very true. Very true. What do you think? What do you think, Rico?
I'm just, waiting for the day where United States law respects science and know that cannabis is cannabis.
Oh, well, I mean, the Controlled Substances Act, it's all still the same definition.
Classify it as cannabis, get rid of marijuana. What is marijuana?
That's just a word that they use. It's all cannabis sativa L by definition.
I think the article points out a very interesting trend, though, is that people who are frustrated in regulated cannabis markets are basically now switching over to hemp.
Yep.
Because there's no testing requirements.
Yeah.
You have a much larger addressable market that goes beyond the borders of the state you live in.
Yep. You can sell on the internet.
Yeah. Everybody else is doing it. So it doesn't seem like the FDA is shutting down any of these people who are synthesizing cannabinoids. So if you can't beat them, I guess join them.
Look at that. Look at that, Dr. Mark. Look at that. If you can't beat them, join them.
Man.
Yeah, and the trap lives on.
The trap lives on.